Dear friends, welcome back to our series on decoding key machine learning concepts through the metaphor of our journey toward love. Today we explore one of the most essential and elusive traits in love: emotional availability. It's not just a psychological concept. Emotional availability has a spiritual, somatic, and yes, a logistical dimension. In this episode, we'll discover how machine learning models can help us reflect on our emotional bandwidth, attunement, consistency, and how we make space for love in our lives. Self-awareness, which was our guide to machine learning in our first video, shall be our starting point. Emotional availability lies, above all, in the ability to prevent past experiences from blocking us from opening ourselves to others. The second key manifestation of emotional availability is the attunement to others, or, as Daniel Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson, reflects mindsight, encompassing both empathy but also a beneficial influence for those we care for. We might have done the work in healing our inner world, but relationships remain dynamic, always testing our ability to function as secure, autonomous beings. Our goal, before stepping into a relationship, is to cultivate a secure attachment pattern. However, especially at the beginning of the relationship, when each one's communication style is yet to be understood, some episodes may trigger returning back to an anxious or an avoidant attachment pattern. While avoidants withdraw, anxious attachment tend to overwhelm a person with attention, seeking confirmation of their presence and importance in their life. Emotional availability is most of all reflected in our willingness to show vulnerability by expressing our feelings and needs, whether missing a person or wanting more closeness. Moreover, openness implies healthy stress management skills. As Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory indicates, emotional availability prevents us from entering a flight or fight mode at the first signs of disagreement. An open heart remains, however, overwhelming. Therefore, gradually letting go or fears may require making some time for somatic regulation through meditation, grounding, or any other practices. Consistency, nevertheless, remains the core expression of emotional availability. We learn to make time for that person while detaching from everyday stress to show up patient, understanding, attuned, and ready to receive their presence into our life. This logistical dimension is where machine learning models will help us increase of emotional availability by helping up declutter our life and growing a connection to a healthy pace. As we learned during our previous videos, an ML model starts with data selection. Well, emotional availability combines soul searching with external opportunities. So, should we go for supervised or unsupervised learning? Do I know what I want, or come what may? From a machine learning standpoint, emotional availability operates like a semi-supervised learning model. Think of our self-awareness, our values, attachment style, communication habits as the labeled data. This is our base learner. Then, life throws us into situations filled with uncertainty, the unlabeled data. Semi-supervised learning allows us to build a model that draws from what we know, ourselves, to make sense of the unknown, others. In love, this means trusting our emotional intuition while still being open to discovering people who don't fit our usual type, but may surprise us with their alignment. Let's begin with our own world, or the supervised learning. Attributing feature importance would demand of us to get your priorities in place. When preparing our dataset, we'll focus on correlation, which will lead us to someone with a similar or flexible life schedule and mutual information, MI, which in relationships draws us to attunement and the art of consensus. Mutual information would imply anticipating someone's communication style. Do they need being provided solutions or just comforting? Mutual information will also imply reassurance or being there even if you're not there, the good morning text, or the helping hand sent from afar, even when times get overwhelming. So what's on your plate? A day has only got 24 hours, so we might have to adjust activities according to their duration and priority status. In a machine learning mode, we do so through data scaling in the pre-processing stage. Data scaling can be conducted either through normalization or standardization. Recommended when we are unsure of the data. Distribution normalization is delivered through the min-max scaler, which converts a value within the range of 0 and 1. Employing the standard scalar, standardization orders values from 0 to 1 between their mean and standard deviation is 1. Standardization is best used for data with a Gaussian distribution, such as when we know our priorities. Let's face it, emotional availability is rarely linear. Sometimes we're pulled between career goals, family obligations, inner fears, or high hopes. So, how do we integrate these parts of us into a coherent, loving presence? That's where ensemble learning comes in. Just like combining different ML models gives better predictions, in love, we combine emotional, mental, physical, and logistical models and allow their wisdom to meet. Bagging requires us separating the training data on different subsets and independently training various models on them. Results are combined through voting for classification or averaging for regression. The main purpose of bagging is to reduce variance, or the tendency over-adjust our behavior, preventing us from people-pleasing. Key parameters we're going to work with in a bagging model include N estimators, or the number of base learners, such as using decision trees to see where your goals align, or polynomial regression to see whether you manage to create a bond as each experience reveals more of their character, max dot samples, or the number of training samples per learner. In a default setting, we handle all samples with replacement. How many experiences with this person do I need to make up my mind? Any significant moments to pass as green or red flags? Bootstrap or whether to sample with replacement. The bootstrap sample is further used to train the model. Is sense of humor enough to pass the test? What about if it wasn't in the equation at all? Base estimator, or the model we used with our weak learner. We shall correct its prediction with the meta learner, and that's how we avoid getting out of the good on paper trap. N-jobs for parallel computation. How do we actually feel with this person, and how do we feel when they're not around us? Are they a beneficial presence in our lives? A source of peace or anxiety? Is this really worth the effort? Should everything be on our plate? Remember the Eisenhower matrix and how urgency and importance highlights what to do, decide, delegate, and delete? That's where boosting can give a helping hand. Boosting implies training models one after the other, fixing the errors produced by the previous ones. A combination of all models creates prediction. As for its application in the interpersonal side of things, boosting teaches us how to address conflict by correcting our weak learners or unhelpful thought patterns with compassion and growth. Boosting works with the following parameters: NI estimators, or the number of weak learners, such as the model we use to either arrange our schedule or to think of the disagreements to be resolved. Learning rate, which shrinks each new model's contribution, such as clarity takes of conflict and the resentment it may cause. Base estimator, or the weak learner we used. Anything that didn't fall quite well with us? Since each weak learner comes to correct the other, let's think of the episodes that may strengthen the bond when addresses with open communication or reveal the person in front of us in their true colors. Max depth, mind samples split, or the model complexity control. Just how far do we go to either accommodate a relationship in our schedule, or how much do we truly want to draw clarity on? Subsample, what are we focusing on? Blunt remarks and too much pragmatism. Loss, the loss function to optimize. Think of the severity of all scenarios we've sketched in our mind without addressing what's bothering us and how it may affect our relationship. Stacking implies using different individual models on the same data and then combing predictions within an additional model, called a meta-learner. The k-fold cross-validation method is applied on each base learner model prior to the training dataset. We are bound to both bias and variance, both when estimating how a relationship may affect our life. Stacking allows us to use diverse perspectives, career, timing, shared values, and blend them through a meta-learner, our long-term vision. Key parameters to operate with when using the stacking model include base learners, or the list of different algorithms we use to assess either the stage of life we find ourselves in or the person. Meta-learner, or the final model trained on base learners' predictions. Does this really have a long-term potential? From a logistics point of view, are we at a stable life stage that allows this relationship to reach its full potential? CV, or cross-validation strategy for stacking? Can we seriously live with all their quirks for the rest of our lives? Pass-through, or whether to include original features alongside base predictions. Anything particularly impressive? Their kindness and altruism towards total strangers? Their grit? How they turn off their phone when they're with you? Whatever model you choose, the final stage of emotional availability is consistency. In machine learning, we use recursive feature elimination to prune what doesn't serve the model. In love, we learn to declutter our schedules and intentions so we can consistently show up with peace, presence, and purpose. Permutation feature importance reveals what matters most. In relationships, it's not the grand gestures, but the daily grounded rhythm of making space for someone, again and again. Because in the end, emotional availability isn't just about being ready to love. It's about being reliably open even when life is noisy, messy, or demanding. And that, my dear friends, is when love starts to feel like home,